Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Time to Thrive. This is your host, Bethany Meadows. Content marketing has always been important to a small business marketing strategy, but today there are so many more options for content creation and dissemination. And while most business owners know they should have a content marketing strategy, they often hesitate because of budget and time concerns. Our guest today is the founder of Tiny Marketing, an agency that specializes in creating content marketing strategies for the facility services, construction, medical, real estate, and SaaS industries. Her focus is on providing high impact results through content marketing while not increasing internal resources. I'm excited to welcome to Time to Thrive, Sarah Noel Block. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Woo! Thanks for having me.
In the back of my mind, I keep going, I need to have one of those, like, where you push the button and, like,
yes,
the crowd.
I was picturing an applause button happening, so I just did that internally.
I totally need an applause button. Okay, so, like, on every show, we have our guests pick a number between 1 and 5, and we ask you a completely random question that is usually kind of off the wall or makes you go,
I'm going to go with 3.
3. If you were given $1,000 to spend on your closest friend, what would you get them?
I would get them a mini vacation. She just had a baby and she needs that.
Oh, that's nice. See, you could say I would get them, a restaurant tour or something, and then you could go with, but that sounds nice.
She probably just needs an escape, though.
No, we've been there. We've been there, done that. I actually have 7 children. I don't know if you know that.
No, I didn't know you had 7.
Yeah, and they're all pretty much grown. I have 5 grandbabies now.
Wow.
So, yes.
No wonder you're busy around the holidays. You were just saying that it's insane between
October to the end of the year.
That's the reason.
It is the reason, yes. And we're pretty tight-knit, and we like to do things together as a family. And so we have these annual events that we do. So we have like our costume pumpkin carving party.
That's fun.
And we do a gingerbread showdown that's really competitive in teams where we compete with these like monstrosities that we build. And we've been doing it for so long, the skill level is there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you guys are experts.
Now we're at the point of, if we did it, cut it this way, we could really, get the support for whatever, but we love it. One of the things that I always find that I'm always curious about is that when I have somebody on the show who is a marketer and maybe has an agency, as marketers, we're more aware of the brand story, right? So when we name our companies, they tend to have a little story.
Yeah, you're like, why?
So I just I wanted to ask you, where did the name Tiny Marketing come from?
Yes. So I always consider this like my origin story, as if I'm a superhero. But I was a 1-person marketing department for a 7-company group. And so I was the only person in charge of creation and strategy for all marketing for all 7 companies, had to answer to 7 different presidents. And it really taught me how to create systems around marketing so I could scale myself and still get great results. So that's where Tiny Marketing was born. It was just me being a tiny marketer in my cubicle and figuring it out. So now I work with other small marketing departments to help them build out systems so they can show up consistently.
That's awesome. There always is that great story, because it was, in my case, I was going through a divorce and a personal crisis. And so for me, it was about staying vertical in my faith, and named my company Vertical Solutions Media. So it was that's the short version. But yeah, there's always a story behind.
There's a novel behind the clip.
You mentioned this. You work a lot with single-person marketing departments, or even a 0-person marketing department, which in some cases can be a lot more challenging. And when there's the limited human resources in a company dedicated to marketing, the person in that position often has to deal with the opinions of others who may not even know a whole lot about marketing, but they got a strong opinion and they are in a position to exert it. Speaking to business owners here who maybe have that one person who does their marketing, what are some insights on why that idea they heard on the radio or got mentioned at the convention or whatever may not be the best fit for them?
Yeah, so here's my method for that, because that happens at every single company. It happened to me. It happens to every marketer I know. So
well, even as an agency owner dealing with a client who owns a company, we have that same challenge sometimes.
Constantly. They're like, well, why aren't you doing this? Here's the thing. We have a strategy in place. You have a set customer journey. You have a basic linear progression that a customer discovers you in and moves through the process. So it doesn't make sense to do all the things that you hear about when you don't have a lot of time or resources to experiment all the time. So stick to your marketing plan, and then quarterly, give yourself experimentation time. So pick one thing to experiment with that sounds extra exciting that quarter, but set benchmarks for it. So by the end of the quarter, you can say this was a success or this was a learning experience. And then you can decide if that's something that you should bring in to your marketing plan, or if that's something that, it was a marketing lab. We tried it out. It didn't work out. It's okay.
Yeah, that's some good advice right there. A lot of business owners listening right now don't have a content marketing strategy at all. Most of the business owners I talk to, they're just running full out, and they can't see how they're going to squeeze that in. But what questions should they ask themselves to determine where they start? Like, what is there, like, a way to determine the best large form piece of content for them to start with? And how do they figure out what makes the most sense for their audience?
So the first thing I do when I'm starting a strategy, and everyone listening can do this on their own, they don't need a strategist to do it for them. The first thing I do is I survey the ideal customer avatar. And you can, if you don't have a large list, email list, or customer list, that's okay. You can purchase that customer avatar within SurveyMonkey, so you can get insights from those people. You can also ask your followers on social media about this, but send out a survey so you can figure out what their general buyer's journey is. What channels do they hang out on? What content format do they prefer? And use that as a base. Then I go into interviewing my favorite customers, that top 20% that I just want to replicate because they're my favorite people. And I find out how they found me and what customer journey they go on. And then last, look at your analytics. Where is most of your traffic coming from? How are they finding you now? Now you can pull all of this information to determine a general customer journey, and that will give you a simplified content strategy. You'll figure out what channel it is you should be focusing on. You don't need to focus on all channels. Just pick the one where most of them are. And you'll find out what your core content should be. They might raise their hand that they like podcasts. So that would be your core content, and then you can repurpose it to distribute wider. But that would be like the one thing that you create. Even once a quarter is okay, because you can repurpose it to high heaven and feed your marketing channels for 3 months if you need to, with like a 60-minute interview.
Right. We were talking that, but before we, hit the record button, we were talking about that very thing. So
yeah,
do you have some actionable ideas for how someone could break down and repurpose content?
Oh, yeah. I have this system down pat. This is what I do for all my clients. But what I do is so I'll give you my customer journey as an example. Most of my customers are on LinkedIn. So that's the channel in the awareness stage that I hang out on. And then between that awareness and that getting to know you stage, it's podcasts that are really helping me find my customers and my people. So it's about a 40-minute interview with influencers within the industry. And I take that and I break it up into usually about 3 to 5 minute videos for YouTube and about 10 shorts that would go on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And then I create probably about 15 social media posts on different topics. So not just promoting that podcast, but different topics that we talked about within that podcast. I use it as inspiration. And then emails every single day of the week. And you can do the same thing. Pick out those key topics that you talked about. And then you can drop in clips within those emails. And then you can turn it into a show notes page, multiple blogs. If you had a 40-minute conversation, you probably talked about 3 main topics. Those are all potential blog posts. And long form ones too. Then each section within that blog post can be its own shorter blog post, and you'd have a hub and spoke method that would help you increase your search rankings too. It's actually pretty easy when it comes down to it. You just create that core piece of content and then create a system so it's easy to repurpose it.
Right. Well, and there's enough freelance support out there, or agencies like you and I, where people can get connected to help.
Yeah, you can definitely.
Just because, you're a landscaper doesn't mean that you're a blogger.
Right.
But you can use blogging as a way of really connecting to your audience and providing value and building relationship. Inside our Time to Thrive membership, we have a strong focus on goal setting and planning. Over the years, I've figured out that this is about the last thing that small business owners want to do. And when you ask them if they have a plan, they'll say yes. And you say, can I see your plan? And they say, well, it's in my head.
Right? Yeah. We're creative.
And the problem with that is it changes on the fly. The new shiny distraction comes along and you forget what your plan was, and now you're chasing the thing. So I like to think of planning as your guardrails to keep you in your lane.
Yeah.
And I know this is important to you. I've kind of stalked your podcast and your blog and all of that. So I could see that we had that, emphasis in common. So I wanted to ask you if you could give us some insights on why planning is so important for success and some tips to get it done without locking ourselves in an office for a week.
Yeah, you could get this done within a couple hours. So I like to do it quarterly. I like to do a quarterly plan so we start with the basics. We have a template with all of the marketing plan in there, that customer journey in there, but then look at those benchmarks, those analytics, set goals for the next quarter. And one of those goals could be experimenting, like we talked about, and trying out this new thing that you saw at a conference. But do it quarterly and try and bring in all of the stakeholders involved. Even if you're a one-person company, there are other stakeholders involved. You can bring in your freelance support. You can bring in some of your key customers and get some insights from them all at the same time. So you get all of those voices included within the plan.
Right. The digital spaces right now are so noisy and crowded, and it just seems like every day they get even more noisy and crowded. And I feel like a lot of our audiences have become desensitized to some extent. I mean, they're so now used to this barrage, this drinking from the fire hose of content that comes their way every day. How can we break through and get our messages not only heard, but listened to?
Yeah, you really need to be the niche. You don't want to be everything to everyone, but pick that one solution that you can provide for that one person. Think of it that way, because there is a lot of content out there and it can be overwhelming. But if you are speaking the exact right thing that someone needs to hear at that moment, you're going to stand out. You don't need a huge audience to be successful. You just need a core audience that trusts you and relies on your expertise. And that's all that really matters. Just having that. Being a mini or a micro influencer is a lot more powerful than being a Kardashian or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's something with a lot of business owners really struggle with, because they feel like they're giving up customers if they narrow down their focus. But like you were talking about, having that niche makes us way more relevant than everything else that is competing for their attention.
It's like a laser straight to them rather than spraying your message everywhere.
Right, right. Content marketing leans towards being more of a longer term strategy, in that, we need some time to kind of get it going and build that audience and create some credibility and things like that. But, business owners, a lot of times they're looking for some quick wins. Is there some ways that we can, inside a content marketing strategy, get some quick wins?
Yeah. So I started content marketing before I started my business, but with the business in mind. I knew I was going to be leaving my full-time job. So I started building my brand around that. And the first thing I did was partnerships. I connected with product companies that served the same audiences I was serving in my service company. And I would do joint webinars with them. I would get quoted in publications. I would do guest posts in publications. So I would basically borrow other people's audiences that had a mirror audience as mine, and instantly grew so much faster because I was tapping into this audience that already exists and letting them know that I exist.
Right.
I got my first 4 clients through those opportunities. People just finding out I existed that way.
Right, right. Actually, I heard you talk on a podcast recently about Harrow, and that I'm a subscriber to Harrow, and I always keep an eye out for clients, opportunities for clients or for ourselves. And that is a way to kind of, and it's help a reporter out. And it's a way of, as reporters looking for resources for an article they're writing, and you can be that resource. So if you can get your expertise out there as part of an article that has value, can get you in front of an audience pretty quick there too.
It also helps so much with SEO. All of those backlinks every time you get quoted makes a huge difference. There's also help a B2B writer out. That one is really great. And it's especially great for those B2Bs that don't have a huge presence on their website. Harrow has a threshold where if you don't have a certain amount of traffic every year, you can't request quotes. But Help a B2B Writer Out doesn't have that. So any small brand can request quotes. And it's a great way for those who are using AI writing as their base to bring in expertise from other people and make sure that you're making it more your own.
Right, right. Let's talk a little bit about lead magnets. I love me a good lead magnet, and I'm the one who signs up for all of them. I have no problem giving out my email, and because I'm also very curious. I want to be on your email list because you might have content that provides value to me, and B, as a marketer, I love to see how other people are doing it, because it's the same thing that I do.
Yeah,
I love a good lead magnet, so I'm all about it. So why not get free information if it's something that can help me?
I'm with you on that. I just signed up for one right before I got on this call. And I have no regrets.
No, me either. I do get a lot of email, I will say. But,
yeah. If someone doesn't meet my expectations in that welcome sequence, I unsubscribe.
Just try and get through the clutter. So what are the keys to developing a successful lead magnet? I mean, anybody can develop a lead magnet, but the key is to have one that is successful, that has enough of a draw or is compelling enough to, attract the people that we're trying to get connected with. So
I
what are
have
some of
three
those
methods. I have three methods for this. Okay, so first method is look at your high traffic blogs, your high traffic content in general. Which ones are getting a ton of traffic without any work, like they're ranking in Google, and create a custom lead magnet based off of that. As an example, I have a couple blog posts that are ranking super high for quarterly marketing plans. So I was like, it makes sense for me to create this template for quarterly marketing plans and share it out. Within the first day, I had over 100 of people pulling it, subscribing based off of that lead magnet. And it was because I was already getting so much traffic to those pages. So it was low hanging fruit.
Right. Well, and I want to add in here because I did sign up for your template. And it also sent me a link to a video where you explain the template, like where you walk people through it. And I thought that was a brilliant touch because not only is it a piece of paper, which has value, but now I can see your face, hear your voice, and really see that you know your stuff. So that was really an opportunity for you to demonstrate your thought leadership in that area by doing the video.
Thank you. I almost always add videos to my lead gens to walk people through them, just in case, especially a template. I'm in this mode where I always want to delight, even if it's a free thing. I want you to feel like you got your emails worth, So I wanted to make sure that people could use it. Yeah, so I always create video walkthroughs for anything like that.
I'm all about the wow, surprise, delight factor in all the touch points, right?
Yeah. It doesn't take too long to do it, and it makes people happy. Okay, so I gave you one method. My second method would be identifying, like, if you went through that survey and customer interview route that I talked about earlier for developing like a super simple content strategy, then you'll know if your audience prefers written content, video content, or audio content. So use that as your base and then see what keywords you're ranking really high for and use that as the topic. Or maybe if you're selling a new service and you want to get that traffic in, you can create a topic around that, but use your content strategy and knowing what content medium they prefer as your base. So for me, for example, my people enjoy video. I've had a really good response to webinars. So I do them monthly now. And that always brings in pretty like high quality leads that are already 75% through the buyer's journey. So while I'm getting a ton of leads through the templates that I'm doing, the webinar people are already way further down that buyer's journey.
Right. Well, and that kind of brings up a good point in terms of the importance of consistency. By doing that every month, you're talking about people who are 75% through the buyer's journey, but there's also a timing factor for their need too.
Yeah, you keep reminding them every month that.
Right. So you want to have that front of mind awareness, and through those consistent webinars that you're providing value for them every month, you can get that.
Yeah. Yeah, and now I completely forgot what my third method was. I was talking. You'll have to go with 2. It'll come to me as soon as we hang up.
I'm getting some feedback. Are you hearing that?
Mm-mm.
A little bit. Okay, so the role websites play in our marketing strategy has significantly changed over the past 20 years. And I'm an old lady, so I do remember I've been in marketing over 30 years, so I can go back that far. It used to be this static placeholder. I mean, I remember when having a website was only the luxury high-end brands actually had one because no one else could afford one.
Yeah.
And then the technology got a little easier and a little better, and there was more people that got skilled in building them. And then it became well, you got to have a website to be credible. If you don't have a website, are you even a company?
Yeah. Do you exist?
Right. And then it was really this static placeholder where we would just list what we did, what our products and services were. And e-commerce didn't even come along until later. Now business has evolved to become more of the customer journey. It's because now you interface with all the other things that we're doing. And so the functionality of the website has really been elevated. If a business owner has not updated their website in the last 10 years, they're probably a dinosaur at this point, because the digital aspect of our online presence has become so much more important. Can you share about the role that websites now play in our connection and engagement with our audiences?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the first thing I do when I start to look for a solution to my problem is, well, Google them and go to their website. People are already about 80% through the sales process before they ever reach out to you. So the sales process is happening on your website. They need to see right on there what problem you solve and how you solve it. So make sure that you're saying exactly what process people should expect when working with you and what they should expect by the end of their time working with you. And it'll make it a lot easier. Plus, of course, there's SEO.
Right.
20 years ago, websites were super static. And now they need to be really dynamic, and you need to be constantly updating and creating new content if you want to be able to rank. So that consistency and creating new content is important too.
Right. Well, and one of the things I want to touch on that you just kind of mentioned is that the shift has gone from it's all about me. Let me tell you about me. Let me tell you how awesome I am and what I do, to all about the customer and what their problem is and how we can solve that problem. And so there's this fundamental shift off of us and onto the customer. And I think a lot of companies haven't made that shift yet, and that's where their breakdown.
Yeah. A lot of people think that like the About Me page is about me. It's not. It's about them. You mentioned Story earlier too, and Story brand is a great example of the customer-led marketing. And your marketing plan should be customer-led. They're the ones who they're raising their hands, they're talking online, they're telling you exactly what problem they need solved and how they want it solved. You just need to listen and streamline. Create your marketing on that.
Well, a big part of this too is about understanding your customer avatar.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't know who your customer persona is, it's very complicated. You have all these different generations, and the way they respond to things are completely different from each other. And you have, is your customer male? Is it female? Is it, are they parents? Are they seniors? Are they whatever stage of life or things that are going on with them? It really affects your message. And if your message, again, we talked about earlier about if you're too general, right? You just get lost in the noise.
Yeah.
It's figuring out that laser pointed message comes down to understanding who your customer really is.
Yeah. And that's really the hardest part and the most essential part, because you can't have a niche unless you know who you're selling to and what their problem is.
I downloaded the planning template that you had.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first thing that really hit me about it was that you actually put a picture of you think the customer persona
Yeah.
looks like. And I love that you have to go find a picture of somebody that you think, this is what my person looks like.
It helps you visualize who you're talking to.
I love that. I had never thought about that before, but I will from now on. So as we wrap up this episode, what are 1 or 2 points of learning that you really hope the audience will take away and implement in their business?
Yeah, that you don't need to create a robust marketing plan. You can be as streamlined as possible. Just look at your customer journey and do that. That is your roadmap for your marketing. You don't have to go beyond that.
Well, and it's, it might be an investment to set up, doing a marketing plan for the first time is more, takes a little bit more time than doing it the second or third time.
Yeah, because it's an iteration of the original.
So once we have it dialed in and we can, work our way through it, then it's not this big overwhelming task anymore. It's just become part of the process and system that we have in place. Your website is sarahnoelblock.com.
Yes.
And so people can join you there. What else where do you want to connect with people? What else do you want people to know about you?
So I host the Tiny Marketing podcast. So you can find me there. And I also have, if you're looking for me on social, I hang out on LinkedIn. And I have a webinar replay that I can share with your audience that's Avoid Content Burnout with Core Content. So it's what we talked about at the beginning of the episode, where, how you create that one thing and then you repurpose it and distribute it to be able to get more eyes on it.
Right. I think of it as a game. How many pieces can I get out of this?
Yes. Yes. I love that.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I think this was great information and content, and we'll be distributing it all kinds of different ways, just like we talked about.
We're repurposing.
Yes, we'll be repurposing. So people can watch out for that. I'll put your links down in the description so people can find you. And thanks for being here.
Perfect. Thank you.